When my son told me I wouldn't be welcome at his house for Christmas, I smiled, got in my car, and made one call. By the new year, I had their inheritance redirected, and that was just the beginning. Justice, I decided would be my gift this year. I remember the exact moment. Michael's voice was tight, rehearsed, as if he'd practiced the lines in the mirror. Dad, it's just not a good time. Isabella's parents are coming, and, well, you know how it is. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me through the phone. I could picture him, standing in that kitchen I'd paid for, the marble countertops gleaming, the new appliances humming quietly, all bought with my money, my sacrifices, my dreams for his future. Of course, son, I said, my voice steady. Wouldn't want to get in the way. He hesitated, maybe expecting me to argue, to beg for a seat at the table. But I'd learned my lesson. Years of being the backup plan, the emergency fund, the silent partner in their perfect life. I hung up, set the phone down, and let the silence settle over me like a heavy blanket. Then I stood, walked to my desk, and opened the folder marked Estate. Inside, every detail of my life's work. The house, the savings, the insurance policies, the investments. All of it, for years, had one name on it, Michael. My only son, the one I worked double shifts for, skipped vacations for, poured every spare dollar into. The one who now found me inconvenient. I picked up the phone and dialed my attorney. Janet, it's time to make some changes, I said. She didn't ask why. She'd seen the signs, heard the stories. Absolutely, Dennis. I'll draw up the paperwork. Who should be the new beneficiary? I thought for a moment, then smiled. Let's talk about options. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No more worrying about whether I'd be invited, whether I'd be needed. I was done being the safety net for people who only remembered me when it was convenient. The next morning, I made a list. People who had shown up for me, who had called just to check in, who had brought soup when I was sick or shoveled my driveway without being asked. Friends, cousins, even the neighbor's kid who mowed my lawn last summer. Real family, I realized, wasn't always blood. The days ticked by, each one colder than the last. Christmas lights blinked in windows all over town, but my house stayed dark. I spent Christmas Eve with Rosa and her family, laughing over tamales and hot chocolate, the air thick with warmth and music. No one asked me to leave early, no one made excuses. I was wanted, not tolerated. Meanwhile, Michael's texts grew shorter, more perfunctory. Merry Christmas, Dad. Hope you're well. I replied politely, but I didn't offer details. I didn't ask about the kids or the dinner or the gifts. I let the silence speak for itself. On New Year's Day, Janet called. It's done, she said. The estate is updated. Michael's out. The new beneficiaries are set. I thanked her, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in decades, my future and my legacy were truly mine to decide. A week later, Michael called. His voice was different this time, strained. Dad, I got a letter from the bank. Something about trust. I kept my tone even. Yes, I made some changes. It didn't seem right to keep things the way they were. He was silent for a moment. Then, is this because of Christmas? I almost laughed. No, son. It's because of every Christmas, every birthday, every time I was an afterthought. I'm just making sure my legacy goes to people who value it. He tried to argue, to explain, but I'd heard it all before. Promises to do better, to include me next time, to make it up to me. But I was done waiting for next time. I was done being the backup plan. Word spread quickly. Family members called, some to congratulate me, others to scold. He's your son, they said. You can't just cut him out. But I could, and I had. Respect, I realized, wasn't automatic. It was earned, and Michael had spent years spending his inheritance before I was even gone. The next time I saw him, it was at a family gathering in March. He looked older, tired. He pulled me aside, voice low. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much I'd taken you for granted. I nodded, letting the words hang in the air. It's not about the money, Michael. It's about respect. About family. He nodded, eyes shining with regret. Is it too late? I thought about it, really thought about it. It's never too late to change, son. But you have to want it. As I left that day, I felt lighter. I'd lost a son, maybe, but I found myself. And that, I decided, was the best inheritance of all. I nodded to Michael as I walked away, feeling the weight of years of silent sacrifice finally begin to lift from my shoulders. The spring air was cool, but I felt a warmth inside me that I hadn't known in a long time. For years, I'd measured my worth by how much I could give, how much I could fix, how much I could provide. But now, for the first time, I was measuring by something else, how much I was valued, not just needed. The days after that conversation were quiet. I spent more time with Rosa and her family, helping her youngest with his science project and teaching her daughter how to ride a bike. They welcomed me with open arms, no expectations, no strings attached. I realized how much I'd missed this real connection. Laughter that didn't feel forced, a place at the table that was always set for me. Not just when it was convenient. Meanwhile, Michael's life seemed to unravel in small, almost imperceptible ways. I heard from mutual friends that Isabella's parents had started to question their own generosity, that the perfect image they'd built was starting to crack. Michael called less often, and when he did, his voice was softer, more hesitant. He asked about my health, about Rosa's kids, about the weather. He never mentioned money, never asked for help. I could tell he was struggling, but I didn't offer. I'd spent too many years rushing in to save him from his own choices. One afternoon, as I was pruning the rose bushes in my front yard, my neighbor, Mrs. Patel, stopped by. She handed me a plate of samosas, her eyes kind. "You look lighter these days, Dennis," she said. "Happier," I smiled, accepting the plate. "I think I am, Mrs. Patel. I finally realized I can't make people value me. I can only value myself." She nodded, her own eyes shining. "That's the secret, isn't it? Giving to those who give back." That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the samosas warm in my hands, and thought about legacy. Not just the money, the house, the insurance, but the memories, the lessons, the love I'd shared. I realized that inheritance wasn't just about what you left behind, but who you left it to. Who would remember you with gratitude, not just relief? Who would tell your stories, not just cash your checks? I started writing letters to the people I had named in my new will. To Rosa, thanking her for always making me feel at home. To Mrs. Patel, for her kindness and her samosas. To my old friend George, who'd called every week since Maria died, just to check in. I told them what they meant to me, how they'd shaped my life, how grateful I was for their presence. I included small gifts, Maria's favorite cookbook for Rosa, a set of gardening tools for Mrs. Patel, a bottle of good whiskey for George. Things that mattered, things that would remind them of me long after I was gone. As I sealed the last envelope, I felt a sense of peace. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was free. Free from the expectations, the guilt, the endless cycle of giving and being forgotten. I'd taken control of my story, my legacy, my life. A week later, Michael showed up at my door. He looked tired, his eyes rimmed with worry. "Dad, can we talk?" I let him in, offered him a seat at the kitchen table. He sat, hands folded, staring at the wood grain. "I lost my job," he said quietly. "Isabella's parents are talking about selling the house. I don't know what to do." I listened, really listened, for the first time in years. I didn't offer solutions, didn't reach for my checkbook. I just sat with him, letting the silence fill the space between us. After a while, he looked up, tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Dad, for everything. I took you for granted. I thought you'd always be there to fix things." I reached across the table, took his hand in mine. "I'll always be your father, Michael. But I can't be your safety net anymore. You have to stand on your own." He nodded, wiping his eyes. "I know, I want to try. I want to be better." As he left that night, I felt hope. Not for the old relationship, but for something new. Something built on respect, not obligation. For the first time, I believed we could get there if he wanted it as much as I did. The days that followed were filled with a quiet, steady resolve. I kept to my routines. Morning walks through the neighborhood, coffee at the corner cafe, afternoons tending to my small garden. The world outside seemed unchanged, but inside, everything was different. I was no longer waiting for Michael's call, no longer checking my phone for a text that would never come. I was living for myself, for the people who showed up, for the moments that mattered. One Saturday, Rosa invited me to her daughter's birthday party. The house was bursting with laughter, children darting between rooms. Adults gathered around the kitchen table, sharing stories and food. I brought a homemade cake, the recipe Maria used to make every year. When I set it on the table, Rosa's eyes filled with tears. "She would have loved this," she whispered. I smiled. feeling Maria's presence in the room. Her warmth woven into every bite dot as the evening wore on. I found myself surrounded by people who cared not because of what I could give, but because of who I was. Rose's husband handed me a cold beer, clapped me on the back. Your family, Dennis. Always. The words settled deep in my chest, a balm for old wounds. I realized then that family wasn't just blood. It was loyalty, kindness, shared history. It was the people who made room for you at their table, no matter what. Meanwhile, Michael's life continued to unravel. I heard through the grapevine that Isabella's parents had put their house on the market, that Michael was struggling to find work. The perfect facade was crumbling, the cracks widening with every passing day. Still, I didn't reach out. I had made my decision, and I was determined to stand by it. Got one evening, as I was locking up for the night, my phone rang. It was Michael. His voice was small, almost childlike. Dad, I know I don't deserve it, but could I come over just to talk? I hesitated, then agreed. When he arrived, he looked lost, shoulders hunched, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. He sat at the kitchen table, hands trembling. I messed up, Dad. I let them convince me you were the problem. I let them turn me against you. I listened, letting him speak. He talked about the pressure to keep up appearances, the fear of disappointing Isabella's family, the shame of losing everything. I thought if I just worked harder, if I just did what they wanted, it would all work out. But I was wrong. I lost myself. I lost you. I poured us both a cup of coffee, the silence stretching between us. Michael, I spent years trying to make you happy. I gave you everything I had. Money, time, love. But I can't give you self-respect. That's something you have to find on your own. He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. I want to try, Dad. I want to be better. Not for the money, not for the house. For us. We sat together for a long time, the past hanging heavy in the air. I thought about all the years I'd spent waiting for this moment, all the times I'd hoped for a sign that he understood. Now, finally, it was here. Not perfect, not easy, but real. After he left, I walked out onto the porch, the night air crisp and clean. I looked up at the stars, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I'd done what I needed to do. I'd protected my legacy, my heart, my future. I'd given Michael the chance to change, but I wasn't waiting anymore. My life was my own. The next morning, I called Janet, my attorney. I want to set up a scholarship, I told her, for kids who need a second chance. In Maria's name. She was quiet for a moment, then said, That's a beautiful idea. Dennis. I smiled, thinking of all the young people who would benefit, all the lives that would be changed. My legacy, I realized, wasn't just about money. It was about making a difference. About leaving the world a little better than I found it. As I hung up the phone, I felt a surge of hope. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. I was no longer defined by what I'd lost, but by what I could give. And that, I decided, was the greatest inheritance of all. A few weeks later, I received a letter in the mail. The envelope was thick, the handwriting unfamiliar. Inside was a thank you note from one of the first scholarship recipients, a young woman named Alina, the daughter of a single mother, the first in her family to attend college. She wrote about her dreams of becoming a nurse, about the nights she'd spent studying by candlelight when the power was cut off, about how the scholarship in Maria's name had changed her life. I read her words slowly, letting them sink in. For the first time in years, I felt proud not for what I'd accumulated, but for what I was able to give away. That evening, I sat on my porch, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and gold. I thought about the years I'd spent chasing approval, trying to buy my way into a family that never truly saw me. I thought about Michael, about the choices he'd made, about the man he was trying to become. I realized that forgiveness wasn't a single act, but a process of slow, steady, letting go of old hurts, old expectations. I was learning to forgive him, and more importantly, to forgive myself. The next Sunday, Rosa invited me to dinner. Her house was filled with the smells of roasting chicken and fresh bread. the sounds of children's laughter echoing down the hall. I brought a bottle of wine, a small gift for her husband, and a stack of board games for the kids. We ate, we laughed, we played late into the night. As I was leaving, Rosa hugged me tight. "You're part of this family, Dennis. Don't ever forget that." I promised her I wouldn't. On the drive home, my phone buzzed. It was Michael. "Dad, I wanted to let you know I found a job." "It's not much, but it's a start. I'm trying to make things right." I texted back. "I'm proud of you, son. Keep going." I didn't offer money, didn't offer to bail him out. I offered encouragement, and that was enough. The weeks turned into months. Spring melted into summer, the days growing longer, the nights warmer. I spent my mornings in the garden, my afternoons volunteering at the local community center. I taught English classes, helped with job applications, listened to stories from people who, like me, had lost and found themselves more than once. I saw pieces of my own journey and their struggles, their hopes, their resilience. One afternoon, as I was packing up after class, a young man approached me. He was quiet, shy, his English halting. "Mr. Flores, you help many people. Why?" I thought for a moment, then smiled. "Because someone once helped me. Because everyone deserves a chance." He nodded, understanding more than my words could say. That night, I sat at my desk, writing in my journal. I wrote about Maria, about the life we'd built, about the dreams we'd shared. I wrote about Michael, about the pain and the hope, about the slow, steady work of rebuilding trust. I wrote about legacy, not the money, not the house, but the love that lingered long after the last check was written as the summer sun dipped below the horizon. I realized I was content. Not happy in the way I'd once imagined, but at peace. I had let go of the need to be needed, the need to be chosen. I had chosen myself, and in doing so, I had found a new kind of family, a new kind of purpose. One evening, as I was watering the roses, Michael pulled up in his old sedan. He got out, hands in his pockets, eyes uncertain. "Dad, can I come in?" I nodded, leading him inside. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where so many hard conversations had taken place. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. "I know I can't change the past," he said, "but I want to be part of your life. Not because I need anything, just because I miss you." I reached across the table, squeezed his hand. "That's all I ever wanted, son." We sat in silence. The years of hurt slowly dissolving, replaced by something fragile and new. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time, I believed it might last. The days that followed felt different, lighter somehow. Michael started coming by more often, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to help in the garden or share a meal. There were no requests for money, no hidden agendas, just a father and son, relearning how to be in each other's lives. We talked about everything and nothing, the Mariners' losing streak, the best way to prune tomato plants, memories of Maria's laughter echoing through the house. Each conversation was a small step toward healing, a quiet promise that things could be better. One Saturday, Michael brought his kids over. I hadn't seen them in months, not since the last awkward birthday party where it felt more like a guest than a grandfather. This time, they ran up the walkway, arms outstretched, shouting, "Grandpa!" I knelt to hug them, my heart swelling with a joy I'd almost forgotten. We spent the afternoon building a birdhouse, painting it bright blue and yellow, the kids' laughter ringing through the yard. Isabella didn't come, but I didn't mind. For once, there was no tension, no careful tiptoeing around unspoken resentments. Just family, simple and true. After they left, I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the trees. I thought about how much had changed in just a few months. I'd gone from feeling invisible, discarded, to being surrounded by people who wanted me in their lives. Not for what I could give, but for who I was. I realized then that the greatest inheritance I could leave wasn't money or property. It was love, forgiveness, and the courage to start again. Meanwhile, a scholarship fund in Maria's name was growing. More letters arrived, each one a testament to the power of second chances. A young man from the neighborhood wrote about how he'd used the money to buy books for his engineering classes. A single mother thanked me for helping her daughter attend summer camp. Their gratitude was genuine, their hope contagious. I kept every letter, tucking them into a box on my desk, a reminder that even small acts of kindness could ripple outwards, changing lives in ways I'd never imagined. One evening, as I was sorting through the letters, I found one from Mrs. Patel's son. He'd been accepted to medical school, the first in his family to go to college. "Thank you, Mr. Flores," he wrote. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." I wiped away a tear, thinking of all the people who had helped me along the way, Maria, Rosa, even Michael, in his own way. We were all connected, all part of a larger story. Michael called that night. "Dad, I wanted to ask, would you come to the kids' school play next week? They're both in it, and they'd love to see you there." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, son." For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged. The night of the play, I sat in the front row, camera in hand, heart pounding with pride. The kids spotted me in the audience, waving and grinning. After the show, Michael hugged me, his eyes shining. "Thank you for coming, Dad. It means a lot." I hugged him back, realizing that sometimes the smallest gestures could heal the deepest wounds. As summer fades into fall, I find myself looking forward to each new day. I spent more time with friends, volunteered at the community center, and even started taking painting classes at Rosa's urging. Life was full, rich with possibility. I no longer measured my worth by what I could give away, but by the love I shared and the lives I touched. One crisp October morning, Michael stopped by with a box of old family photos. We spent hours sorting through them, laughing at bad haircuts and remembering holidays past. For the first time, there was no bitterness, no regret, just gratitude for the moments we'd shared and hope for the ones still to come. As he left that day, Michael turned to me, his voice steady. "I know I don't deserve a second chance, Dad, but I'm grateful you gave me one." I smiled, feeling the truth of his words settle deep in my bones. We all need a second chance sometimes. The important thing is what we do with it. The leaves turned gold and red, swirling around my feet as I raked the yard. Each day brought a new reminder of how much had changed. Michael and I had found a rhythm called every few days. Visits on weekends, the kind of easy companionship I'd always hoped for but never dared to expect. The kids came over to help with Halloween decorations, their laughter echoing through the house as we carved pumpkins and strung up fake cobwebs. Even Isabella, though still distant, had softened. She sent a polite thank you note after the play, a small gesture, but one I chose to accept as a start. One afternoon, as I was finishing up in the garden, Michael arrived with a box of tools. "Thought you might need a hand with the gutters," he said, grinning sheepishly. We worked side by side, the silence comfortable, broken only by the occasional joke or story. When we finished, we sat on the porch, sharing a cold drink as the sun dipped low. "I used to think you'd always be there to bail me out," Michael admitted. I never realized how much I was taking for granted. I nodded, understanding, in a way I never had before. Sometimes it takes losing something to see its value. That evening, I pulled out the box of letters from scholarship recipients and reread a few. Each story was a thread in the tapestry of my new life, a life built not on obligation, but on choice. I realized that the inheritance I'd once planned for Michael had found a new purpose. It was helping strangers become friends, friends become family, and family become something deeper than blood. Thanksgiving approached, and for the first time in years, I was invited to Michael's house. The invitation was simple, almost shy. "We'd love to have you, Dad. The kids have been asking if you'll make your famous stuffing." I hesitated. Memories of past holidays flickering through my mind, the awkward silences, the feeling of being an outsider in my own family. But this time felt different. This time, I was being asked, not expected. I arrived with a casserole dish under my arm, heart pounding as I rang the bell. The door swung open, and the kids rushed to greet me, pulling me inside. The house was warm, filled with the smells of roasting turkey and cinnamon. Michael met me in the hallway, his eyes bright. I'm glad you're here, Dad, I smiled, feeling the last of my doubts melt away. Dinner was loud and messy, filled with laughter and stories. Isabella was gracious, even asking for my stuffing recipe. As we sat around the table, I looked at the faces of my family, imperfect, flawed, but trying. I realized that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting the past, but about choosing to move forward together. After dinner, Michael and I stood on the porch, watching the kids play in the yard. Thank you for giving us another chance, he said quietly. I know I don't deserve it. I put a hand on his shoulder. None of us do, son. That's what makes it a gift. As I drove home that night, the streets lined with twinkling lights, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I thought about Maria, about the life we'd built, about the legacy I was leaving behind. It wasn't the inheritance I'd once imagined, but it was richer, deeper, more lasting. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Michael. A photo of the kids, faces smeared with pumpkin pie, grinning at the camera. Best Thanksgiving ever. Love you, Dad, I smiled, tucking the phone into my pocket. For the first time, I believed it. As winter approached, I found myself looking forward to the holidays. Not with dread, but with hope. I decorated the house, baked cookies for the neighbors, even joined Rose's family for their annual caroling night. My world had grown, filled with people who cared, people who showed up, people who made room for me at their table. I realized then that the greatest inheritance wasn't money or property or even forgiveness. It was love, messy, imperfect, hard-won love. And that, I decided, was worth more than anything I could ever leave behind. The first snow of December arrived quietly, blanketing the neighborhood in white. I watched from my window as children built snowmen and neighbors strung up lights, their laughter and music drifting through the cold air. My house, once so silent and lonely, now felt alive with possibility. I set up the old nativity scene Maria had loved, placing each figure carefully, remembering how she used to hum carols as she worked. For the first time in years, I felt her presence not as an ache, but as a gentle warmth. A few days before Christmas, Michael called. Dad, the kids want to know if you'll come over early this year. They're making you a special present. His voice was hopeful, almost boyish. I agreed, my heart swelling with anticipation. I spent the morning baking cookies, packing them into tins for the kids and for Rosa's family. As I drove to Michael's house, I thought about how much had changed in just 1 year. Last Christmas, I'd been shut out, left to eat dinner alone. This year, I was being welcomed back not as a guest, but as family. When I arrived, the kids met me at the door, their faces flushed with excitement. Grandpa, come see. They led me to the living room where a small, hand-painted sign hung above the fireplace. Welcome home, Grandpa. I blinked back tears, overwhelmed by the simple gesture. Michael stood nearby, watching quietly. They wanted you to know you're always welcome here, he said. I hugged the kids, feeling the last of my bitterness melt away. The day was filled with laughter and small joys. Board games, stories, the smell of cinnamon and pine. Isabella joined us, more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. She thanked me for the cookies, asked about my garden, even offered to help with the dishes. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. We were all trying, all learning how to be a family again. After dinner, Michael and I sat by the fire, the kids asleep upstairs. He handed me a small box, wrapped in gold paper. Open it, he said, his voice soft. Inside was a photo of Maria, me, and Michael, taken years ago on a summer picnic. On the back, Michael had written, "Thank you for never giving up on us." I closed my eyes, letting the gratitude wash over me. I almost did, son, I admitted. But I'm glad I didn't. We talked late into the night, sharing memories, hopes, regrets. Michael apologized again, not just for last Christmas, but for all the years he'd taken me for granted. I thought I was entitled to your help, he said. I never realized how much it cost you. I nodded, understanding. We all make mistakes, Michael. What matters is what we do next. As I drove home that night, the streets quiet and still, I felt a sense of closure. The pain of the past hadn't disappeared, but it no longer defined me. I had chosen to forgive, to move forward, to build something new. My legacy was no longer tied to money or property, but to the love I gave and received. On Christmas morning, I woke to a house filled with light. I made coffee, sat by the window, and watched the snowfall. My phone buzzed with messages, Rosa inviting me to dinner, Mrs. Patel wishing me joy, Michael sending a photo of the kids opening presents. I replied to each one, my heart full. Later, I visited Maria's grave, leaving a small bouquet of winter flowers. I told her about the scholarship, about the kids, about the second chances we'd all been given. I thanked her for teaching me what real love looked like, for showing me that family was more than blood. As I stood in the quiet, I felt her presence beside me, steady and sure. That evening, I joined Rose's family for dinner. The house was loud and bright, filled with music and laughter. I was given a seat at the head of the table, a place of honor. As we ate, I looked around at the faces of my chosen family people who had welcomed me, supported me, loved me. I realized that I was exactly where I was meant to be. As the evening drew to a close, I stepped out onto Rose's porch, the cold air sharp and clean. The sky was clear, stars scattered like diamonds above the quiet street. I took a deep breath, feeling the peace settle in my bones. My phone buzzed one last time with a message from Michael. "Merry Christmas, Dad. Thank you for everything." "I love you," I smiled, replying simply, "I love you too, son. Always." Walking home, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain of rejection, the courage to change, the slow, patient work of forgiveness. I had lost much, but I had gained more respect, purpose, and a family that truly valued me. My inheritance was no longer a number on a page, but a legacy of kindness, resilience, and love. That night, as I turned off the lights and climbed into bed, I felt Maria's presence beside me, gentle and reassuring. I knew she would be proud not just of what I had given, but of what I had reclaimed. My story was not one of loss, but of transformation. I had found my place not in the shadows of someone else's life, but in the light of my own. And as I drifted to sleep, I knew that whatever tomorrow brought, I would face it with an open heart. Because in the end, the greatest gift I could give or receive was the chance to begin again.